This is K-Rockcast, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us. Hi, everybody. We're back. It's episode 14, Into the Wolf, part 1. Kelly, I'm excited to dig into Woosung's first solo album, Wolf, in this episode. Listeners, we're going to do this in 2 parts. And so this week's episode is going to be diving into part 1. But we're going to start with some updates around the Rose and then our artist recommendation. So, Kelly, let's kind of jump right into some updates on the Rose. So, listeners, today is May 17th when we're recording. We got some exciting updates on May 13th with a preview of the merch. And I kind of laugh, Kelly, because when we went through the whole marketing schedule, there was this item on May 13th and it was labeled as MD preview. And I can remember we didn't quite know what that was supposed to stand for.
Nobody knew what it was
I
supposed
didn't
to.
realize.
I mean, the day before I was like, maybe it's music documentary? I thought maybe it was a trailer for the documentary or something.
Right.
Yeah,
That would have been cool.
that would have been very cool. I'm surprised
But
something hasn't come out yet.
yeah, that's actually really true. But MD apparently stood for merchandise. I guess maybe that's a new abbreviation
Obviously.
I wasn't aware of.
Obviously, yeah.
We had seen a couple t-shirts that were part of some bundle packages when the album preview came out, but there's more merch that has come out. And, again, I know, Kelly, I might sound like a broken record, and maybe our listeners are starting to get annoyed that I keep saying we get so much shit right all the time, but I like to highlight when we do get this shit right because we know what the fuck we're talking about here. You said back into the Catalyst episode in that hot takes when we saw the track list and there was this shirt in the background. I thought it was like a Dickies shirt from like the late 90s, like 2000s. And what did you say when you saw that?
They were Jim Jams.
Yes! And you were right. You were totally right. They were PJs, which is so cute. I'm loving these PJs.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not buying these goddamn PJs.
Come on, you know me. I walk around dressed in black from head to foot most of the time. If they'd done them in black, maybe that might have happened. But
Yeah.
no, definitely not really my thing.
So the items I think are really interesting. I mean, I think that they align with what I said when I saw that image, that everything they're doing, and whether we said this in I don't know how many episodes, is far more masculine. We got the cap. Yay! I'm excited about this cap that I'm like absolutely obsessed with. Why am I obsessed with this cap and the meaning behind
I
it?
don't know. I mean, there's definitely a conscious decision behind the artwork that's on it. So I can understand why you're going
Yeah.
down the longest rabbit warren in the world ever. At some point, you will catch up
I
with a
need
rabbit, and Alice will be there. But yeah,
I know. The Rose, if you're listening, I need you to come out and tell us what all these little symbols mean. It's driving me mad.
I think it will become really abundantly clear at some point. It will become clear.
Maybe. Hopefully. Interestingly, one of the items is a hoodie that has Soom written with that red no symbol on it. And then kind of in the circle of the red are these stars. And so I wanted to point this out. I've been thinking about this a little more, Kelly, and I don't think the Rose has come out and said the English translation of Soom.
No, they
Correct?
haven't. No, they haven't at all. And I think I know where you're going.
So everyone's assuming it means breath or breathe, which it does. Soom means that, but Soom has another meaning. And it hit me yesterday. It also means hide.
Yeah.
Sumda means hide, to hide. And so I'm wondering maybe it means don't
Don't
hide?
Yeah, possibly.
Like don't hide yourself, don't hide from the truth.
Yeah.
'Cause that seems like it makes more sense than don't
It
breathe.
it makes more sense in the context of the album, what we know so far
Yeah.
of the album.
We don't have a lot from his lyrics in the snippet, he's just saying running back to you over and
Yeah.
over again, so that doesn't help us, but I don't know. We'll see. If I'm
Yeah.
completely off base, maybe it does mean breathe. Hmm.
No, I mean,
Um,
it could be either, but actually, to me, "Don't hide" makes more sense.
yeah. Yeah, the more I was thinking about it, I think it might.
Mm.
And then on the PJs, as we noticed when we were talking about the track list photo, it has the "We Go as One," so that's
Mhm.
cute. Then they have a red and white striped shirt, kind of polo style, and then shout out to the Black Rose that realized in that pre-recorded video that the guys put out, where what are you laughing at, Kelly?
I've just got
You're
"Where's
laughing at something already.
Where's Wally" in my head.
I know
Just "Where's
so
Wally?"
you jumped ahead of us with your laughing, but you're laughing because, Dojun wore this red striped shirt in the pre-recorded video that the guys put out when they announced their pre-sale on Amazon, and literally everybody else in that video is in, like, all black, and he's there in this bright red striped shirt. All the Black Roses were like, "Where's Waldo" meme. That was, like, what came out of that, which is so funny. I said when I saw him in that, do you remember what I said to you? I was like, is this like a middle school picture day for
Yeah, you
him?
sent
I
me a
don't know
little
what he's
snippet today,
wearing.
yeah.
He looked like he was like in middle school. I was like, what is he wearing? So that is one of the items. I don't know how I feel about that. I
I
don't think
wouldn't
I'm
say that's
buying
a
that
glowing
personally.
review of that item of merchandise.
Oh, I'm so sorry, the rose. No offense. Maybe somebody will like that.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe? I don't know. All the Dojin lovers, maybe? Maybe? It's too funny. And then lastly, a black t-shirt. I feel like it kinda looks like it has nebula, like, looks like it's got, like, a nebula on it, stars.
Yeah,
I thought
it's
that was nice.
it's either a nebula burst or an aura, a physical manifestation of an
Yeah.
aura of somebody, or if you kind of
Mm.
squint and look at it at a different distance, it just looks like a perm.
Sammy's perm? Is it Sammy and his perm?
Oh dear,
Sammy
bless him.
Sammy and your perm. Dude, can I just say this? Like, I laugh because this man but he talks out of his ass. So anything he says, you have to just take it with a grain of salt. He's like, "Oh, I hid the TikTok videos because we looked young and, that's not our direction or whatever." I'm like, "Dude, you got a perm and look like you go to my daughter's high school. Like you look like every other high school kid." I'm like, "What? What is going on with this perm? Stop it." I'm just like, "What?"
I don't
The
mind.
floppy
I don't mind the sort of floppy sort of curls. It doesn't bother me that much, but I know what
Oh
you
my
mean.
god. Yeah, it's like
Oh.
every teenage boy's, like, uniform, like, helmet that they wear, this, like, floppy hair
Well, at least it's not
that's
curtains.
not brushed.
At least it's not curtains, because that's literally what it's been for, like, the last 4 years. It's like, "Oh my god, we're here again."
Do you think he's gonna go, like, all floppy down in his eyes during the show?
What do you mean all floppy down in his eyes? That's lost in
Well, when it's all
translation. Oh,
lost
do
in
you
translation? I don't know, like, it's when his hair is all down in his face and it's
oh, you
covering,
mean
like, his
just
eyes.
having a fringe? Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly.
Though I find it interesting because he hates that. it's, like, annoying to him, but yet he wears it that way a lot.
He might just stick his finger in the socket and come on with an afro.
So fascinated by how Roy's gonna style them this tour. Like, what's the look gonna
I
be?
think it'll be
I think it's
very
gonna be very different.
I think it'll be very, very laid back. We think it's gonna be jeans and T-shirt and that type of thing. It will be the preview that we got pretty much, I would have thought, at Rabbit to the Moon.
Yeah.
I
Which
I'm
Sammy had slick back hair in that one.
Hair looked good on that show.
You know how I feel about the forehead, the full forehead look.
Don't look, can we stop with these weird comments?
All right, I'll keep us moving. I'll stop, I'll
Thank
stop.
you.
All
There we
right,
go.
take us take us to the next, update with the rose we wanted to share, Kelly.
Right, so on May the 15th, Transparent Arts sent out a feedback survey, which everybody will have probably received at some point. You had signed up to the mailing list, whether that be the Rose or Woosung. The survey basically was asking for feedback on what people generally considered issues with Transparent Arts and the Rose and what had occurred. And they also wanted to know what they were doing well and anything else that fans wanted to share. Now, it's a huge step forward to do that. I mean, it's a very big step to sort of say, look, we want to improve and how do we improve? And I think the fact that they've taken that sort of prompt really does sort of lean into the fact that they are wanting to improve. Because at the end of the day, you improve services, everybody wins. Um, Sammy followed up on his responses to fans on X. I mean, he obviously, as you said in the last episode, he obviously took all of those concerns, sat in front of the guys and sat with James and said, look, we've got issues and we need to look at these. So, absolute respect for him for doing that. That wouldn't have been easy. It wouldn't have been nice. And I should imagine it's really been quite stressful for them all to deal with and to try and rack their head around what they needed to do. James Rowe from Transparent Arts, he also put out a open Ask Me Anything question on Instagram, and he responded to those. He sent his responses straight away, and that was a really positive thing for it to be an almost immediate response. He also shared a couple of quite exciting things as well. So the documentary's been picked for another film festival. Obviously, they can't make the announcement on that one until the festival announces who was in their lineup, but the announcement for that will be coming soon. And the Soul show, the details of that will be announced soon too. Now, we've sort of speculated that we thought it was going to be a festival. The festival that is happening in Tokyo also has on its books a Korean festival as well, which will take part in Seoul, and none of that's been announced yet, but they do have the dates blocked in on their website. So we're kind of speculating that they're probably going to have a decent spot playing there on one of the days as well. But yeah, so some positive moves and some positive outcomes, really.
Yeah, I really think so. I think to what you said, I think it just shows, how much Sammy took the feedback very seriously. I mean, we talked about that in Into the X-verse episode. Took it back to the guys, took it back to Transparent Arts, and I think putting out this survey is a huge step and just a way for fans to provide positive feedback, constructive feedback that's not just spewing hate on social media. I think, as you said, James Rowe from Transparent Arts giving that opportunity to have some immediate answering of questions through his Ask Me Anything. I think, again, that's another huge step in showing that they have great intentions and they want what's best for the Rose and fans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think they'll work to achieve that the best that they can. So just recognition to Transparent Arts and the Rose for taking those steps. I think that's huge, and looking forward to seeing what comes out of that.
Yeah. I think they did really well with that.
I'm going back to the news he shared about the documentary. Great for them. I'm excited to see, what other film festival might be playing their documentary, but I think they're really, really hoping for distribution, right? We talked about that when we introduced
Mm.
the documentary in a previous hot takes. So I think they're just keeping their fingers crossed. But wherever that premieres, I hope Black Roses go out and do the level of support we've seen for the New York Tribeca Film Festival. Just great news there. I'll give a plug. They had, I guess, so much interest that they not only added a fourth screening, but added more tickets to some of the other screenings. So it means that there's a large number of interest. I know I've seen a lot of fans in the New York area that are going, or fans that are coming from traveling from outside of New York to go. So, um,
I know people who are traveling from outside of the country to go and see
yes,
it.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so love to see that level of support for the Rose. Excited to see if this documentary gets previewed at more film festivals and gets picked up for distribution. So Kelly, why don't you take us into our artist recommendation this week?
So this week's artist recommendation is a little bit of a strange one. This is a track called Inertia, which is a Japanese track which has recently just come out, and it's a collaboration between two artists. Now, you may have heard of one, but not necessarily in this guise. So, Sawano Hiroyuki, he writes for various Japanese animations and dramas, and he also arranges music for lots of musicians in Japan. That's his primary job. Now, if I give you a rough idea of the type of soundtracks he writes, you will probably click, especially if you're into anime, and especially if you're into cult anime. You will definitely recognize a lot of these titles. The first one being, and I freely have to admit, I'm a little bit of a nerd on this one, Attack on Titan, and The Shadow, and The Rose of Versailles. And these are unbelievably fantastic tracks in itself. But the Inertia track is something else. It's something completely and utterly different and quite left field from what he usually does. So, in the spring of 2014, he started working on a project with different artists, basically different singers, and he would compose under the sort of pop sort of arena as such of music. But he did it under the different moniker of Sawano Hiroyuki NZK. Don't know why he decided that was what he was going to do when he was writing in the pop world, but that's what he did. So this track, Inertia, he's teamed up with a band called Newspeak. Now, Newspeak have been around since 2017 and they're based in Tokyo. They are a rock indie band, really great, definitely worth a listen on their own. If and they've had a really decent sort of track record of good albums that they brought out. They're signed to Warner in Japan, and they've got sort of three decent albums that are worth a shot if you want to have a listen to them. So, in 2019, they brought out No Man's Empire. And then in 2021, they followed it up with Turn. And then they did a self titled album last year called Newspeak, which is fantastic and definitely worth a listen. There's some fantastic, really good tracks on there. And the band is comprised of there's the singer and composer Ray. Now, it's Ray who actually appears on the Inertia track, and his vocals fit so well with that entire soundscape. It is perfect. A little bit of a weird thing about Ray. So Ray is British Japanese, and he grew up in Liverpool. He's a Scouser. um,
That's so cool.
so then you've got the rest of the band. They're only a three piece as well, which is quite interesting because you do kind of wonder how they create the sounds that they do. So they have a Canadian drummer called Stephen. So they're very international, and the bassist is Yohi. And yeah, so one, I would definitely say listen to the track Inertia. it is this wonderful blend of rock and electronica. It's got a big slice of pop in there, and
Mm.
it's one of those hooks that kind of hits you around the face several times. Bass line is fantastic. You know, I'm a sucker for a bass line. And it's
Yeah.
just enjoyable. It's one of those tracks you put on, and then you're like, "Do you know what? I'm going to listen to that again." But I can honestly say as well that if you just listen to that one track, please go out of your way and listen to Hiroyuki. Listen to his like vocal projects, but listen to his soundtracks. His soundtracks are a thing of beauty and definitely worth
Mm.
sort of taking on board. But also Newspeak, great band, definitely worth a listen.
Yeah. Oh, those are 2 really good recommendations, Kelly. We will have those linked, and just giving another shout out, I'm sure you've added them to our K-Rock Cast Loves playlist on Spotify. So listeners, if you haven't checked out our playlist, kind of compiling all of the recommendations that Kelly brings throughout all the episodes in one place for you, definitely check that out. All right, let's dive into Woof Part 1. So let's take you back. I'm going to kind of take our listeners, Kelly, back into a little bit of the history of the Rose, kind of pick up where this album kind of fit in what was going on with the Rose at the time. So if you guys remember, listeners, in our Into the Red episode, we kind of ended in terms of their music release in 2019. So let's take you back to that time, 2019. We actually learned through some of the interviews that we watched through the research that while his solo album was released in 2019, he had actually been working on these songs, Face as an example, up to 2 years prior to
Mm,
that. So it just made me think again, Kelly, when we reflect on like the reasons that the Rose gave for terminating their contract with Jay and Star Company, how busy we saw they were as a band. Then to learn on top of all of that, Woosung was working on his own album
yeah,
in addition to all of that.
yeah.
It's like, wow. How
Got to
did he
bear
have even time to, like, sleep?
because I don't think sometimes he does. Um,
I know. I think you're right.
I think when he has something on his mind, it plays on his mind, and he has to get it out. And I can see this was his story he needed to tell in
Yeah.
whatever way it was. It wasn't a Rose story to tell. I don't know the ins and outs of the actual agreement with Jane Starr, 'cause, I mean, this was done under Jane Starr, wasn't it? This first release.
Correct. Mhm.
So he would have had some form of agreement, and from what I understand, Jane Starr wanted to sign him, and he basically said, "Hold on a minute, you can have me, but you need to take the band as well." If I
That's
can remember
true.
correctly, I might be paraphrasing it. So I assume somewhere in there was probably a contract for him to release a solo album or an EP or a solo release
Yeah.
as well. As I said, surmising here, I might be very, very wrong, but uh, connecting dots, I think
No,
that's pretty much what
I
it looks
think
like.
probably right because he did tell that story in his
Mm,
Mindset podcast, and then he said in interviews that I watched around the writing of the Melody of Face that he really started writing that even before debut. So
yes.
and that he'd been really working on these songs, so I think you're right. I'm sure there was some deal of him. I think they always had their eye on him as a solo artist,
Yeah.
along with the Rose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
To add on, because he has, so much free time with working on the
Obviously.
Rose and writing his own album. He also, throughout a large portion of 2019, he was co-host of a TV show called The After School Club. He did that from March to December of
Yeah.
2019. Mind you, he also did Superband during that
Uh-huh.
time, April to July of 2019, and then was writing and promoting Red.
Yeah.
So, like, wow.
He was busy.
This poor guy. Just a
I
titch. Just a titch. I thought I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I understood from these interviews that there really wasn't much promo to the release of this album, that it just kinda dropped, and everybody was kinda surprised, like, fans felt it came out of nowhere. Even in some of the interviews, it was like, "Okay, like, we had no idea," that he was really working on this, which I thought was kind of interesting. Why don't you go through kind of the details of the Wolf EP release for us, Kelly?
So it was released on July the 25th in 2019. There are 5 tracks on the physical EP, and that is Wolf, Face only, and then there's a Face instrumental as well.
And I I like that he kinda talked about some of the meaning or, like,
Yeah.
concept of wolf. And,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
he claims this is why I'm gonna test your listening, your ear. He
Okay.
claims he appeared on the After School Club actually as a guest. We will link that episode if you guys wanna watch it. It's kind of a fun, chaotic episode because he knows those 2 hosts really well, so it was really funny. But he claims there are wolf sounds in every track. Have you been
There
able to
are.
pick them out?
Yes, there are. I mean, it's very obvious.
I tried so hard and
Very
I could
it's
not pick
very
them out in
obvious
every track.
on Wolf. Very, very obvious on Wolf to the
Well,
point it
yeah.
sounds a bit
Yeah.
false on there, to be honest. But actually, on all the other tracks, there are as well. So there's either a little vocal incline to a howl, um,
Mm.
in there, but if you listen to some of the synths actually take a wolf howl and invert them.
Ooh.
So you actually get that padded
Oh!
sound. Ah, clever.
Oh, I'll have to okay. I need to I need to try to go back. I spent for this deep dive, I really focused on Wolf and Moon. I couldn't quite find it in Moon, unless those, like, little nature sounds, which I don't wanna get too, far ahead of ourselves here, but I haven't dug into Face or Lonely yet, but Face has the instrumental, so that'll help. I'll really be able to
Yes.
kinda give a good listen on that. Um, I loved his concept. He said his concept was, "Don't judge a person by how they look or how they act because you don't know what that person has been through."
Basically, the biggest thing I wanted to tell from this album was don't judge a person by its looks or their looks, because you know how like I said, the wolf might look wild, but it's really sensitive inside. So you can't just judge someone by how they look and what they act like because you don't know what they've been through. That was my biggest message.
So he kind of connected it to the wolf because people may think they're scary, but in reality, he has this romanticized view of wolves, that there's this underlying loneliness, even though they always travel in packs and
It's
always
not
stay in packs, that
it's not a romanticized view. And if you watch documentaries about wolves, they are unbelievably intelligent animals that will travel in a pack and hunt in a pack. But there is this undeniable, almost emotional intelligence about a wolf. And the reason that we nearly all have a wolf in our house these days is because they have an emotional understanding and intelligence. I mean, fair enough, they might not look like a wolf running around the middle of Alaska, but your chihuahua definitely has part wolf in it somewhere. It's got the same DNA. It's just been, manipulated a little bit. And this is what he's saying. I mean, don't judge a book by its cover just because it's got slightly sharper teeth and it's a bit bigger and, and it could eat you if it wanted to. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's it's an exceptionally close thing to us. And especially when you look, and I think this is primarily with any like sort of pack animal, when you look into the sort of males in the pack, generally speaking, they get to a certain age and they go out on their own. So this is the sort of
Mm.
lonely, romanticized idea. This is until they form their own pack. Um,
Mhm.
and I can actually
Yeah.
see I
And
can
I
actually
think
see him relating that to himself because that's what he's done. He's gone out on his own and
yeah.
he's forged ahead on his own until he's formed his own pack.
So why did you choose wolf for your concept?
Wolf, because I think there were two sides to wolf that I wanted to show to people. And like normally when people think of wolves, they think of like really like kochirgu, like kind of scary,
Right.
kind of like very wild.
Wild.
But at the same time, I think there's a side of wolf where they always like work in packs, so they don't go out of the pack and work alone, which means, you know, they don't like being lonely. They always look at the moon and they always cry. So I thought there was like a lonelier side to wolves.
Yeah, I totally think that is so much of why he connects with that animal. Some people might say like your spirit animal or what have you. I think
I think his
we've
spirit
said this
animal's probably a
before.
tortoise.
A what?
A tortoise.
A tortoise, you said? Do you remember this question though? I'm trying to remember how the fan
Yeah, his
asked it in the
I
LA
can't remember,
dinner.
but I know his answer was traditionally he's always thought of himself as a wolf, but actually he thinks of himself probably more as a blue whale.
Yes, it was an amazing question. So I think the way it was worded is, what do you see yourself as? What do you think people see you as? What do you want people to see you as? Yeah, and what do you want to see yourself as? It was like that.
Yeah,
It
it
was a
was.
really
Yeah, yeah.
great question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he said he sees himself as the wolf. He thinks people see him as a cat. Which is
Yes.
totally true, like, fans always oogle over how cute he is, and he has that in Korean, like, there's, like, the faces of the animals. He has, like, a cat face.
Yeah.
Like, he has
It's
yeah, so
weird.
he has,
It's
like,
weird.
these
Let's leave
cats.
that bit alone. It's weird.
And then I can't think of what he said he wants people to see him
A
as.
blue whale.
I don't
A
remember what he
blue
s
It was a
but
blue
then they
whale.
said
It
but
was a
there were
blue
2. It was like, what
it no, it was definitely that was no, it was how he truly viewed himself. That was it. And it was how he'd wanted to be viewed. And it was a blue whale because he wanted to be known as having a big heart. But bearing in mind, again, a blue whale is a lonely creature.
is a lonely creature. I know, and I always think, like, he wants that pack, and I think that's kind of why some of the wolf is, like, an animal maybe he connects with because I think he
He's
feels
desperate for
very
his
alone.
pack.
I think he's felt very lonely, and
Yeah.
I think he's looked for his throughout his life for his pack, his
Yeah.
wolf pack,
Yeah.
right? And I think he's found his wolf pack. I think he's found people in his
Yeah.
life he's very close with, he's very comfortable with. And I'm even thinking of themes of future songs that he'll write through the rows of Definition of Ugly is as a good example of just
Yeah.
like these constant themes he'll have of being yourself, red, being true to you are, like finding your pack,
Yes.
So I think that's why I think, like you said, this album is it was his story. It was his introduction to his story that he wanted to tell, and he's been telling this story now in chapters,
It
for
is. Yeah.
years, right?
It's in
And we've been
chapters.
able
Yeah.
to see him evolve. I also think what I love about the way he'll come up with concepts, and he's done this in every album, is he always likes to focus on themes in which something has a misconception.
Yeah.
A wolf is seen as scary, but they're really not. In Moth, he totally did that with the moth versus the butterfly. In 4444, he did that in terms of the song, Day That I Died, in terms of how
Yeah.
death might be perceived. And so I love that he digs into that. He always tries to see the other side of something.
Yeah. No,
I find that really interesting.
I get that because I don't think, I mean, as a person, I never try and take anything on face value. I always try to see both sides and then realize actually the truth lies somewhere in the grey. I think that's kind of what
Yeah.
he tries to do as well. Um, I think that's kind of his mindset as such. I find the how he's evolved the character. I'm going to put it that way. I'm going to say character because I don't think everything's written from his diary.
Mhm.
You take liberties. I mean, don't get me wrong, you do write things from your diary, but generally speaking, you take liberties, you use other people's stories, and you mold them into whatever it is your character is going through at the time to develop that chapter of music at the time. But yeah, I find it quite interesting, but also in a way kind of comforting of this sort of thing where he takes a misconception and tries to
Mhm.
open it up to the light.
Yeah, I love that in his writing. Do you wanna walk us through composer, lyric arrangement, all of that? Let's start with the song "Wolf."
Right, so Wolf, composed by Woosung himself, and the lyrics were by Woosung, arrangement by Woosung, and Lee Gu-hoo, and guitar by Lee Gu-hoo. Recording engineer was Brian Yu and Kang Yeon at Yu Production Studio A. Mixing engineer was Go Hyung Hyung at Coco Sound, and the mastering engineer was Guan Lan Yu at 821 Sound. So they're actually he's using the same studios that they use for previous
Yeah,
EPs through the rows anyway. So if
I
we get
noticed that
on
too.
to yeah, and then if we get on to the sort of analysis, musical analysis as such of Wolf as a track, to be perfectly honest, it's kind of simple, and I don't mean that in any
It's
disrespect, but it's a very simple. It's a very simple song. So Wolf is 96 beats per minute, and it's in G major. And it literally starts out with a wolf howl. I mean, if you're gonna say it's wolf, why not? Let's just start it out with a wolf howl and be done with it. There's something on this EP of it's almost like he's discovered pinched harmonics. So you start with this kind of pinched harmonic, which kind of has that feel of a bit like, kind of in a way like how you play Spanish guitar, but on electric, it has a slightly different feel and a
Mm,
different texture to it. And then you've got, it's an electric drum kit, so it's quite a hard percussive sound. So I think a lot of this is probably been programmed and then, it's
mm,
been played around, which is why you notice that actually there's only guitar being played on it. I
mhm.
find it kind of strange
Right.
that it's not Sammy that's played guitar on it, which might explain why there's this pinched harmonic thing, because I think that's
Mm.
come from the guitarist. Because it seems
Well,
to be throughout the
I mean,
EP, that technique.
I haven't dug in yet to, like, you know, all of the people on his other stuff, but I don't get a sense in his solo work he played guitar.
No.
So, I'm not surprised that he's not playing the guitar on it, 'cause I
Oh,
think in his solo stuff,
I'm
it's not
100%.
about
I mean, I'm 100% sure that
yeah.
he's quite literally I mean, we know he's composed it. He's come up with it to start with, but I think there's the kind of technique behind it has evolved as it's been played. Shall we put it that way? Then you've got this synth beep thing, which also carries the rhythm, and that is
Mhm.
pretty much all the way through the song. Um, it's so simple at its core. I mean, there's very little to it. It's got multiple
I mean,
layers that are just kind of sort of
I
plonked on top of each other. There's not that much to it, but sometimes simplicity is key. And that is one of the things.
I
And
told you
then
it's only a minute 40 seconds.
it's
It
more
is
like an
a really
intro.
short
It's like an
yeah.
intro, to be honest. It's not really a song, it's an intro as such. And then the only other thing that I can actually say about the actual sort of musical composition of the song is you've got about 4 or 5 vocal layers on there. So you've got your usual like double tracking and bits and pieces, but there are some nice subtle harmonies in there as well.
Yeah, I kinda said with this song, like, I like the start of the nature sounds. He's got, like, owls hooting and the birds and then, like, the wolf, howl. I feel like it's, like, my ASMR, like, I'm going to sleep with my white noise machine with it on.
It's very
And then I
cliche,
like
and I
these
don't mean that in
snaps.
a negative I don't mean that in a negative way, but it is very
Yeah,
cliche.
yeah, I like the snap synths that he uses, um, and then I kinda do think the whole chorus part, I do find it very catchy, where he kinda combines the synth melody that's there with kinda that wolf howling, um, back to what you said, the simplicity, I realized as I was just focusing on the melody, it's literally in 2 sections
Yeah,
in which the sections are exactly the same, they just repeat.
yeah.
So it's not even like it changes throughout the song, it's literally
No,
just these 2 sections, and it's just the first one, and then it's it again.
yeah,
So,
that's
I
it.
think it's a testament to looking back on this and kind of analyzing it, I just can see his growth at writing melodies. If you think of like the
Yeah.
solo work that he just came out with in 4444, like wow, what a growth he's seen. So kudos to him. All right, let's get into the lyrics. Again, not much in the lyrics to this one. Um I like his whisper. I like how he's like, "Wolf." I like that part.
Um,
You're looking at
but
me. You got that look, Kelly, that, like, Anne is weird look, listeners. She has the look. She's giving me this look.
yeah, it's yeah. How do I describe this song? It's got it's almost like his how shall I put it? I'm trying to think of a nice way of describing it. It's almost as though he's coming into his sexuality, I think is probably a way of describing it. Um Obviously you've got wolf and the connotations of wolf and everything that goes along with it. Um and there is definitely a very heavy sexual undertone in all of the lyrics of this, to be perfectly
Oh,
honest.
yeah. So let's dive
It's
into the English translation,
Go on then.
listeners. So it starts, "Under the full moon, you have to pinch your thighs and hold them. No, lying next to me, slightly coming to light. What should I do with you?" And then he says in the second chorus or second verse, "Under the blooming moon, holding your hand, and we can take it slow if you want. No." And then he just repeats that same, "Lying next to you, slightly coming to light. What should I do with you?" Yeah, like this is totally like this sexual desire. And he's like trying to hold back and
I mean, it
like
is literally
self-restraint.
it's sexual tension is what it is, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what the actual sort of rhythmic undertones of the actual music is as well. So it's a build of sexual tension. It's a very young way of doing this. I mean, I'll go back to Sleep Token. By God, those guys know how to write sexual tension. That's all I'm saying. They really know
But
how
just
to
think
do it.
about I think like you're saying, like, he's matured, right? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
if he wrote this in 2018, maybe, like, into 2019, like, he's such more of a more mature man now. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
boy,
Yeah,
at this point.
exactly.
I think, like, that's where the howling comes in to me. It's kinda that example of, like, that animalistic kinda
Yeah.
desire. I think
It's
that's
desire, it's urge, it's that sort of not knowing,
Mhm.
it's that sort of animalistic urge that you have towards another person, and then you're not 100% sure whether
Right.
it's acceptable to have that urge towards this other person. Um, so yeah, I get where the lyrics are coming from. I mean, they're kinda yeah. There's sort of a thing in there that's
Are you are you are you saying this is not his best? Are
it's
we
not no,
this is
no, it's not. I mean,
well, you know,
and
it
I
only
can't
goes
say
up from here,
anything.
Sammy.
I can't say anything. I mean, I've written lyrics and I've thought, and then I've found them. And I mean, the lyrics I wrote when I was like 19, and I look at it and I just go, oh my God, what the hell was I on? What was I thinking? And I mean, obviously, I've written stuff where it's like music that is how I'm emoting at the time, where I am with myself, how I am with my psyche, my body, my understanding, my feeling, my guts. Um,
Yeah.
but sort of like I think when I was sort of like the same age that Sammy is when he was writing this, I was in my angry age. I'd kind of had a little bit of this. I
Yeah.
was in my full on anger age. So, I mean, sort of like some of my lyrics from that time are
Yeah.
just full of rage. Um,
Yeah, I mean, this is like you said, this is just representative of where he was
where
at
he
this
was at the
time, and I guess
time. Yeah.
whatever he was dealing with was some sort of internal conflict. I mean, we're joking that there's a sexual undertone to it, obviously, but it could also be an internal conflict, some
Yeah, it
sort of
could be
internal
yeah,
conflict
it
maybe
could
that
be an internal conflict of
Mhm.
self and how you move forward. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I mean, it could quite literally be the psyche blooming as such. You know,
Yeah.
which way is it going to go? How do I go this route or this route? Do I
Mhm.
remain this slow entity, or do I rage forward with all my hormones and do it that way? Personally, I think it's just sexual undertones again. We know he's capable of it. He does write it.
He
Well,
writes a lot of sexual undertones.
let's not pretend and say that this guy is sweet and innocent. He writes sexual undertones in things, and this one is definitely it. So I'm not even going to go
Oh,
there.
this one yeah,
It
this one has a
oozes
lot. I
it.
don't know,
It kind of oozes
something
it, but it's not
about
kind of in a sort of, it's kind of Mills and Boons oozing it. It's not sort of like, yeah, it's not like modern dark romance fantasy stuff. You
I
might need to move
I
on to that a
do
bit
you listen
later.
do you listen to this one?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I don't
You
skip
don't
it.
skip
I
it
always
like
do listen to
Insomnia?
it. No, oh God, no. No.
I
No, I
don't
do
know the review
listen to
you were
it.
giving it. I was thinking maybe this was a skipper for you.
It's that quick, you can't sleep. Oh, gee, honestly, that could sound
You
terrible,
forget it, it's
couldn't
like,
it?
"Oh, Wolf was on."
We've just been on about, and then I'm like, it's that quick.
I have to say, it's it is a simple song and everything, but I do kinda like it, and I don't know why I like it
No,
so
I like
much,
no,
but
but as I've said before, simplicity is key, and sometimes simplicity is the best way to go.
you
Um,
know, I'm a Kim DeLulu, so I think him going, "Woof," is like what I like, but maybe we'll move on.
see, that's the
There's the
thing.
grinning
I mean,
face. Kelly's
I
giving me
have
the grinning face.
you see, but that's the thing. I mean, I tend to go if I'm going to have somebody saying "wolf" to me, I want like a really deep voice saying it. To be perfectly honest, and then it might be my knees go from underneath me.
I gotta add it to my list of all the things I want him to say to me. Let me travel you, wolf. Hmm. Just not California. We won't put that one on there.
You're strange. You are a strange, strange human being.
All right, let's get into the next song, which where Wolf might have been light on, you know, a lot of things. Moon is heavy. Kelly, this song. Oh my goodness. Do you remember in a previous episode where you teased Sammy because you called him he wasn't Rage Against the Machine, he was Rage Against the Hoover?
Yeah,
I think this is his Rage Against the Machine song. He
I
is
think that it's not
angry in
quite.
this
It's not quite.
song.
It's no. It's not quite Rage Against the Machine. We probably Rage Against the Printer with this one. It's not quite there. It's not quite there.
Now I'm
I mean,
getting like
bearing in mind, I'll give you a rough idea about the mood that I was in this morning. I got Pantera on full volume in the car driving down to Nottingham with Pantera. Cowboys from Hell was blaring loud.
listeners, we're going to get into the meaning of these lyrics. And if you've never really dug into the meaning of these lyrics, just wait because this song is angry. Woo! Okay. Composed by Kim Woosung, lyrics by Kim Woosung, arrangement Kim Woosung and Lee Kyung Ho, guitar Lee Kyung Ho, chorus. So we have a chorus, So or Main, recording engineer Brian Yu, Kang Young Nu at U Production Studio A, same mixing engineer and same mastering engineer as Wolf. So, Kelly, let's start. Okay, I won't skip ahead into the lyrics. let's start with melody on this one.
So we'll
I
just do.
love this, like, do you call this a picked guitar? Is that what you would call that at the beginning, the way it
Yeah, it's the
starts?
same thing. You've got this same technique again that's in Wolf, apart from it's not quite as predominant, and then it opens out into a motif. Um,
I
but it
love
is.
it in this
It's
one.
traditional picking, and it's quite nice because it's quite staccato, and it's very
Yes.
clear and crisp. And I think that stands testament actually to the production team. They've made it that
Mm,
way. It's not necessarily the song. I mean, however that's played, it will come across that way. But I think once it's put through all the processes, I think that's why you get that really nice lush sound to it. So
now,
just to
you know what else I
go,
could hear?
yeah.
Felt like I could hear with the picked guitar what sounded like crashing waves in the back.
It's not crashing waves. There's actually a fuzz distortion on there, and it's actually made to sound like white noise. So it's a bit like an old-fashioned radio.
Okay. Yeah.
So you know how you get that static white
Yeah.
noise? That's actually what it is. That's been added in production. So that was a producer sort of addition to it. That wouldn't have
I
been there before.
love that.
So because it's so open and there's not much there with the guitar, it would have sounded very empty. So
Mm.
what he's
Mm.
the producer's done is he's put this white noise underneath just to fill it, just to bolster it, just to give it that little bit of meat without distracting
Yeah.
from the guitar.
Yeah.
So this is in C sharp minor and it's 95 beats per minute. So again, similar ballpark. So
I
when you've listened to Wolf and it goes into Moon, they're very complementary songs.
mm,
You don't get that jarring effect. It just sort of flows in, which is why I kind of say Wolf is a little bit like a precursor. And if you listen to
yeah.
the lyrics of Wolf and this sexual tension, and then you get this slight sort of only a slide of like I think it's only like 1 beat per minute. It kind of slides you into this next part of the story. So it's like a precursor to Moon.
Right.
And then you've got the connection of the iconography of Wolf and Moon.
Right.
So
Right.
so obviously the first part is the moon, the wolf and the sexuality. And then the second part is the moon and the effect of the moon on the wolf.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure, which I think is, like, so smart and so clever.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
It's
yeah,
all right,
he's
isn't
so
it, doing
good.
something like that? Yeah.
He's so good with that. I thought that in this song, there's so much more layers of instrumentation and synths than what we had in Wolf.
Yes, there
Um,
is, but again, it's still very simplistic. It's not an
yeah, but
overburdened
I
song by any stretch of the imagination.
no. No,
Um,
no, but I did feel like there was a little more there, and then I don't know what technique, so I'm gonna describe it to you, then maybe you can tell me the name of the technique, but when a drummer has kind of the cymbal and they have that soft mallet and you're just kind of drumming it in a way, but then it builds like a crescendo sound. What is that called? Is there a certain technique, that I'm trying to describe in maybe a bad way, but
no, to be perfect, it is just a crescendo that they're playing, to be perfectly honest.
yeah,
That's
I
all it
can
is. It's
hear
more like a
that.
Philharmonic thing, of a
Yeah, I can
build.
hear that, and I love that, like, crescendo kinda
Yeah,
sound on the
yeah.
cymbal. I thought that
I find
added
it
a
quite funny
nice
that this starts with a click track. It's all to me, it always sounds like the click track's been left in by accident. And they've got it to the end and they've gone like, "Shit, we didn't take the click track out." It's like, "No, it's all right, leave it in, it'll be fine." Nobody will know, they'll just think it's a drum beat. Yeah, I always kind of find that bit weird because it's very definitely the sound of a click track. Because it's like when you do a click track, there's two very definite
Yeah,
sounds. There's that one,
yeah.
and then there's one that's like a beep beep, which drives you mad. Again, there's this sort of very sort of simple motif on the synths. There's layered synths on this, so
Mhm.
you get different things. And this is where I'm saying that there's this sort of very subtle sampled sound that's been put into a
Yeah.
synth and it's there and you can hear it. And again, that adds to the layers and the levels of it. Again, the bass is unbelievably simple on this to the point of I think that's one of the things, actually. I think as his albums evolve, the bass lines evolve as well. And you get
Yeah.
more definition in the sound, whereas this is just kind of following the
Mhm.
guitars. And it's almost
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's a walking the dog bass line, but it is kind of like a very basic walking the dog bass line. You get this really nice build into the second chorus, which is kind of lovely. And then you get this drop out. And because you've had this build and
Mm.
this drop, you get what you refer to as like an emotional roller coaster, which fits
Right.
very nicely with how the lyrics alter and evolve. So as we get into the lyrics in
Oh,
a minute,
yeah.
you'll see how the lyrics kind of evolve and then build and build and build and build and then drop away and then sort of end up questioning. And I think that fits so
Yeah.
well. I mean, that's a really clever sort of use with it. And then the fact that it actually ends again with the guitar and the white noise is quite nice. Because, like, the white noise to me
Yeah.
is almost sort of like a reference to the white noise that you sometimes hear in your ears. It's that noise
Oh,
in your head,
yeah.
the white noise.
That noise in your
And I quite
head.
like that. I think that's quite a nice way of putting it because this the lyrics to me sound like the noise in your head, which I like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think his delivery on his vocals, so in this album, as we've kinda said, in this era, he was singing very heavily in his head register.
It's
He's
all
definitely
falsetto.
singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's singing heavy in the falsetto, but I love the vocals at the end when I think my favorite part of the song is when he says, "Why you so why you so why?" The way he, like, delivers that part. Ah, just love that part. And I think he does a good job in his delivery of his vocals at evoking the edginess, the anger, but then as you're saying, he changes throughout this song, and it is a lot of, like, the lyrics that will say it's like spewing what's in your head, right? This kind of, like,
Yeah. I mean,
delusions you have in your head.
I kind I kinda like the weird juxtaposition actually of
Mhm.
the anger in a way of the actual lyrics and how it's in his falsetto register, which I find
Yeah.
kinda strange because it's not coming from like, this is gonna sound a bit weird, but it's not coming from, like, a manly anger place. It's coming from sorta like a
Right.
not an adolescent place, but it's kinda that sort of not quite sure, not quite emotionally available place. Whereas as we've listened to him as he's got older and evolved his sound, he's gone into his chest. Now he's had to go into his chest register for other reasons, but he's gone into his chest register and it comes from more of a manly place and it's more of a sort of expression of himself. Whereas this kind of it's
Mm.
got that anger of youth about it, I think is probably the way you're describing it.
Yeah. I think that's a great description. So let's go into the lyrics. There's a lot here, listeners, to dig into. I will put out the English translations. I had honestly never I'll be honest, I'd never translated this song, and I knew I knew some of what he must be talking about in the song from some of the English words that
Yeah.
he says. So there's obviously a harsh tone to some of these English words, but I truly didn't know what the song was honestly about till I did this. Um had you translated it before this?
I'd seen translations of it, but they never
Mm.
quite seemed to fit with what I was kind of because I mean, obviously, my Korean's nowhere near as advanced as yours. So I mean, I when my reading age for Korean's like 5, if it's that. And I mean, I sort of read it and I'm just like, that doesn't quite look what that word says it is. It doesn't quite make sense. But I've never actually physically sat and properly translated it. So I'm really glad that you've done this because it makes more sense and connects more dots than the sort of like, versions that you sometimes see. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So this song takes you. I feel like it like takes you through this story of it. Let's say it's like a character. right? Like you
Yes.
were talking about kind of writing from this perspective of character. And I feel like you go on this journey of kind of where this character is in terms of like in his head
Yeah.
of kind of what's happening with this relationship and the other person in this relationship. And it is like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's like how you have this. I think it's a little bit what you just said of like his level of immature. I'm going to say the word immaturity, but I mean it from a stance of youth.
Yeah,
You
it's
know that
emotional
that
immaturity. It's emotional
yeah,
immaturity,
that
yeah.
like when you're young and you have these very passionate loves, right?
Yeah.
Like to the point that sometimes that becomes toxic, but you
Yes.
feed off the toxicity.
Oh, this is
And that's
toxic. This
this
song is
this
toxic.
relationship is toxic.
Very much
But
so.
at the end of the day, it's like this like awfulness where you can hate this person, but then still want this person. It's like that weird, dichotomy.
It is, but with that, don't you sometimes feel as though it's not necessarily it's the want of the person, it's the want of how you feel yourself when you're with the
Yeah.
person. It's the person that you
Yeah.
become when you're with that individual, not the individual. And I think
Yeah.
that's kinda to me, this is kind of sort of like why this sort of anger's in place.
Yeah. So let's start at kind of the beginning. I feel like the lyrics at the beginning to me like paints this image of someone that's overwhelmed by the outside world and kind of retreats into isolation and kind of seeks comfort there. It's like a quiet battle.
Yes.
Because he talks about, he says, on this night without you, open the window. I don't like the quiet room in the noisy, chaotic street. Cool air traps me under the blanket. No. The heart of the moon that can't open, already experienced deja vu. Why do you keep wavering, girls? And I feel like to me, this is a personality trait I think he has. Like, I think he tends when he's overwhelmed and he's under a lot of stress, I think he
He
internalizes.
retreats.
I
He
think
retreats.
he retreats. He kind of
He
goes
goes yeah,
inward.
it's what we jokingly
Mhm.
refer to in our band as hermit mode.
Yeah. Which let's go relate back to what we just talked about with what's been going on this past year. I think that
He's
is
been in hermit
why
mode. Yeah.
he's been in hermit mode. Like he's felt a level of stress, he's felt a level of whatever is happening, be it business things, be it maybe some personal things, be
Mm,
it things with the band. And he's made the decision that he's needed to retreat. He's
yeah,
needed to get off of social media. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Mhm. And then I think so definitely this is like a perspective of this like relationship you're in where this other person has gone back to like another relation, like a previous ex or something like that,
Mm,
because he's talking about, he gets very vulgar in the guy, um,
yeah,
that this girl is seeing. Yeah, he talks about even when your ex-boyfriend cheated, what were you thinking? Don't understand. Um, why are you so stupid? Why do you believe him? And he says, "That bastard, who's he? Am I not enough?" So I think, we've probably all been in these toxic relationships
mm,
where you're just like, you're going back to this other person who like treated you like shit. And it's like, why am I not good enough? Like, what is it about me? Like, why can't you love me? I feel like that's kind of what he's saying here. Then this is the controversy of this song, Kelly. And listeners,
Yes.
if not sure how familiar you are with this, but there is a derogatory word that is in the song. He has since changed when he would perform it live. He changed that to "Are you discarded?" And so when he was
Yes.
performing it live, he was saying that. Um, but this was kind of a big controversy for him at the
Yeah.
time.
And I
Um,
also wonder if this also relates back to sort of how long this song had been in the offing as well. How long these lyrics had
say
been
that
hanging
again.
around, how long this song had been around, how long these lyrics had been in place. Because we know he's writing
Mm,
this for quite a while. Um,
mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's a terrible term to use, and I can understand why he was pulled up for it. I am quite surprised that it actually got to the point that it did recording wise, and I think some of that might literally have been the fact that he was done in career and not necessarily picked up by, sort of Western speaking ears, who would have probably sort of gone, wait, hold on a minute. That's probably not the right term to use. Maybe you want to alter that. But I hate to say it, it would probably be a term in his youth that would have been bounded around. Um, I know plenty of people that have used this term previously. Yeah, it's not great, and thankfully we've kind of moved on now with it. And the problem is, obviously, as we've mentioned before, he doesn't own the masters for this, so he can't re-record it. So
I
he literally
know.
had
I
to
bet that
own this and put
bothers
his hands up
him.
and go, "Eek, I messed up on this one."
Yeah, I bet that really bothers him. So after the release of Moon, fans went pretty immediately to social media and started sharing their criticism of the use of the R word in his lyrics,
Yeah,
sharing that it was offensive. But interestingly, I could not find any public statement from him until June 19th of 2020 when he was on just kind of a regular Instagram live. He's riding in the car. His cousin is actually
mhm,
driving. And so mind you, this is a year since the release of the album, and he starts playing the album in his car, and he gets to Moon, and he's playing Moon, and he gets to the part, and then he stops. And I don't know what overcame him. I don't really know why he suddenly did it, but he started to apologize. And he said he wasn't going to play the song anymore because of that. And he explained himself, and he basically said kind of what you said, Kelly. Like, he said that he had really no idea that that word was offensive because when he was growing up in the United States as a teenager, everybody said it, and it was what you
yeah,
said to mean something was stupid. And I will wholeheartedly admit, when I was a teenager, that
mm,
word was used all the time, and I will say it right now, I used it myself.
yeah,
Would I use it now? Absolutely not. Do I understand now what it means and how it's conveyed? Yes. But as a teenager, did I? No, I didn't. I didn't at all,
no,
and he didn't either. Then he went to Korea, and he wasn't in that culture anymore. And so he had no idea that it is an offensive word. And so you're right, he's surrounded by his staff at JN Star who also don't know Western culture and
yeah,
had no idea as well. And so I just always respect that he always takes responsibility.
yeah,
He
he does.
apologized, he took responsibility for it. Um, and he said that he changed the lyric, and when he was performing it live after that, he didn't say it, but also, like you said, unfortunately, he doesn't own the masters, so he can't
He can't do anything
change it
about
at
it.
all.
Yeah,
But I think he said he'd always wanted to apologize, and he just maybe didn't know how, but for whatever reason, he just felt like maybe it was time, and so I think that was
I think
big
he
of
was
him.
I think it was possibly the fact that it was time, and also, as he alluded to in the tweets earlier on that we were discussing, he finds social media hard and awkward. So for
Yeah.
him to sort of like actually stop the song and go, actually, do you know what? I need to sort of explain this.
Yeah.
Is means it's been playing on his mind. And I think I kind of get the feeling that because this I say this because I do this. I don't know if he does the same, but if I'm one of those people that has something that plays on my mind, I like to try and get a sort of almost a finalized idea in my head before I express it to other people. I like to almost have the issue sorted before I verbalize it outside. And I think that's probably what happened with this with him. I think he sort of like had that
Mhm.
internal battle, and then he was like, "Actually, do you know what? I think I'm at a point in my head where I understand, and I can state categorically what I feel and apologize about it." But yeah,
Yeah.
it's and
Yeah.
it's a
But I
shame. It's a
think
shame that that wasn't picked up before because it could have been so easily
Mhm.
rectified.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think just again to his testament to his character, I think he always takes responsibility for things. He steps up and he apologized and, fans and he, moved on. So back to the lyrics. So this is that's the part in the lyrics, where he's just like basically saying, why are you so stupid, like why are you so blinded, by this other person, and kind of where some of that's where like that bubbling anger starts to come out, I think,
Yeah,
as he's kind of spinning that in his head, right, in the lyrics. And then he moves into the second part of the lyrics say, "You don't contact me. You pretend to be cool. I hate how quiet you are. Even when we meet, you're only on your phone. I'll contact you. I should have just stayed asleep instead. No." So, now he's in this phase, right, of the relationship with this person where you have that awkward silence and you're sitting there with them and you feel like they just don't see you. Like they're there, but
yeah.
they're
It's
not
all. I mean,
present.
it's technically being ghosted while you're there, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, that I like the line though. I should have just stayed asleep instead. Now, is
Mm.
the line I should have just stayed asleep instead? Is that sort of like in reference to the fact that should I just have ignored what was happening and slept through
Mhm.
it? Or is that
Mm.
should I just have ignored you from the very beginning and slept past you? Just not even woken up to the idea of you.
Mhm.
I think it might actually be should I've just I think it's more about should I've just ignored what's happened and the fact
Yeah.
that it sounds like this person has cheated on him with the person that
Yeah.
cheated on them, and that's kind of what it sounds
Right.
like, and obviously this is sort of this whole dynamic of them being sort of not understanding what is happening in the relationship of where this push and pull is. Well, I mean, it's not even a push and pull, is it? I mean, it's literally talking to a brick wall by all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and I think that lyric is really creative because it kinda connects back to the first stanza where
Yeah,
he's talking
yeah,
about,
it does, yeah.
the cool air trapping me under that blanket. I think you're right. It's like that retreat mode, right? This
Yeah.
character goes into to where would it have just been better, as you're saying, to just ignore that this was going on and just at least, like, let this, like, relationship just continue to play, as it was?
Yeah,
Because at
just let
least
it
he
wa
has
just let it
her.
wash over, pretend it never happened, just let it wash over.
Pretend it never happened. But I think he can't, right? Like, that's the
No,
spinning in his head, and he
yeah.
just can't get past it because he says, "Your moon that only rises at night is so shameless. Why do I keep thinking about you, girl?" Yeah. He says, In our heart with no hesitation, blue, our breathing turned rough. our moonlight started to tremble. You understand. Yeah. Why you so stupid? And then he goes into that like
Yeah, yeah.
refrain again. Yeah, I feel like again, it's like this mix he keeps having of like sorrow, but anger.
I mean, it's the end of a relationship. I mean, you go through all of those points and at the end of a relationship, especially if it's something that you've gone through where somebody is cheated. Um, you go through
Mhm.
the stages of grief basically, and the biggest stage of grief when it's somebody
Yeah.
that's cheated on you is anger. Um, but you do have that self reflection of if is it me? Did I do it? Maybe if I ignored it, maybe if this didn't happen,
Mhm.
and you go through that bargaining. And so there's a lot to me of that bargaining step
Mm.
that you get in these
Oh,
grief
yes.
cycles as well.
Oh,
Um,
yes. The
and you
bargaining,
can,
for sure.
yeah, and you can kind of see that with the in there as well. I mean, I find it quite interesting that the character's kind of described as moon, and the behavior of the moon and the changing cycles of the moon. So the moon can be seen as
Mhm.
something that at some point is bright and luminous and there and present, and then ends up as a new
Mhm.
moon and it's complete and utter darkness. And
Plus, if
that to
he's
me is like the changing cycles of that individual
yeah, and then if he's personified himself in the first song
as the
as a
wolf.
wolf, what does the wolf do? It howls at the moon. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's playing off that kind of traditional dynamic of his loneliness, right? In kinda
Yeah.
howling to
But
this
I mean, it is.
figurative
I mean, it is. If
relationship.
you look at Asian mythology, though, there are the stories of the wolf and the moon. It is
Mhm.
an Asian mythology story of the lovers, basically,
Mhm.
and that's the reason why the wolf howls at the moon. Um, so I mean that it does all tie back to that as well. But then again, a wolf only howls at the moon when it's lonely until it finds its beater.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And then I love the then change it takes at the end, right? So we've said this song takes you on this emotional roller coaster of a journey. And then he starts to change that refrain. So up to that point, he's been saying to her, "Why are you so stupid? Why do you believe him?" But then in the final verse, he says, "Go back, do whatever you want. Why? You make me stupid. You
Yeah,
make me blinded."
yeah,
Right? So he's kinda changing that back now, and it's on himself. And then this is, to me, the most heartbreaking lyric is the final line of the song, which basically translates to, "Will you come back to me?"
yeah. It's
And
that
it's the
bargaining
cycle.
thing. Yeah,
But it's also a little bit like how the moon is a cycle.
yeah,
And so now he's back to the beginning, and it'll go
yeah,
through this same cycle again, probably, of
yeah.
emotion. It's kinda how I
Of
interpreted it
emotion.
too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about a toxic relationship. It is always a cycle. And a
Yeah.
lot of the time the toxic relationship goes and evolves in circles, and you get the peaks and troughs of the full moon, and you see the illumination of what the actual toxicity is. You see the red flags, and then you revert back
Mhm.
to actually it's hidden as a new moon and you don't see it and everything is fine and dandy, and then you go back around it again, and it's only at the point of when the cycle is broken by somebody else that you can actually take stock and actually go, actually you step out of the cycle, and you can actually understand and see the toxicity that you were engaged
Right.
in and that cycle. um, and it's a
Right.
horrible thing. It's such
Mhm.
a horrible thing to experience, and I'm sure many of our listeners have experienced it as well. I think it's part
Yeah.
of the human existence to be
Mhm.
honest. I think we all go through this, and I think everybody has their own levels of toxicity. And I don't think unless you come out of the other side of it and realize that actually I had my own levels of toxicity in that. And to me, this kind of it has that sort of, so I go back sometimes to this pleading thing with him when he's
Mhm.
writing this sort of bargaining, pleading thing. And it's almost
Mhm.
like the sort of the character, the red flag for the character is this desperate need to feel love and wanted.
Yeah.
And that's the toxicity of the character. That's the red flag of that character. And it's that need. It's the fact that they don't find the self-fulfillment of themselves.
Mhm.
They're looking for that fulfillment from somebody else. And as we all know, that never happens. You need to find fulfillment within yourself
Yeah.
before you can step out and become something greater than the sum of.
And okay, it's two things I wanna say off of that, which I love kind of that thought process you were sharing. One, I couldn't help but call back to our discussion on the Void album of ILY, and
Yeah.
where, Sammy described that song initially as a love song, and it appears as a love song, but I can remember we got into this really good conversation, and you said you felt like it sensed an unrequited love.
Yeah,
So then
it
my
did feel
mind was like, this
unrequited.
character, yeah, so here's this character, let's say if there's this character that's passing through the writing of his lyrics, that at that point in the character's journey was maybe the start of this relationship where
Yes.
maybe she was still with this guy and he was falling in love, but it was unrequited, but it was this deep, deep love, this poetic
Mm,
love as he talks about. And then you get to this stage of Moon, right? Of where that relationship starts to turn toxic. And then I think of his more later writing, particularly 4444. Like,
yeah.
again, I can't wait for us to dig into that album,
Mm,
but I think of, you know, I personally have an interpretation of Found You, where I think there's an interpretation of those lyrics that it's not finding love in another person, but it's finding true love in yourself. And so I think he has been on this continual journey in his songwriting. Um, and I just think there's been going back to this album, you can see the evolution of his ability as writing melodies. I think he's always been a very talented lyric writer, but just his ability to shape a story, but also to take that story, and we've seen it move along and evolve over
mm,
his songwriting now that he's been able to have 4 solo albums, come out. So, yeah, this is a deep I think this is a deep song, and it's a shame of the offensive language because he said in that Instagram live that this was actually his favorite song, but now it's been tainted for him
yeah.
because of his mistake.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, but it's lyrically, other than that piece of it, it's a good song.
It's a very good song. As I said, it's not a
Yeah,
complicated song, but it fits the emotional roller coaster of what the lyrics are conveying.
yeah. All right. Well, those were the first 2 songs on Wolf, listeners. If you haven't dusted off this album, you gotta give it a listen. We're gonna follow up with our next episode. We're gonna dig into the next 2 songs. Face, which I'm gonna guess, Kelly, that probably has some,
Some
sexual
connotation,
innuendo.
some that he might not be aware of. There's definitely some.
Because when we talked about Candy, I remember you saying, "Wait till we get to songs like Face." So
I know. so bad. It's so bad. I don't think it's lost in
Mhm.
translation either. Let's put it that way.
Oh. Kim Woosung, we got our eye on you, buddy. We will get into we've got your number, man. We'll get into Face and Lonely in our next episode, but let's move on to our humor segment. All right, I've got a funny one this time, Kelly. A funny one
Oh
for you.
God, go on then.
So, all right, my creative mind, you're hanging out with the Rose for a day.
Mhm.
You can't communicate to them through talking.
Okay.
You can only communicate through A, singing song lyrics,
Okay.
or B, miming dance moves.
I'm gonna have to let out some really bizarre information about myself now, aren't I?
Ooh, how exciting.
Oh God. Why do I always end up slipping out bizarre information about myself
Wait,
on
are
this
you
podcast?
hold on, can I make predictions? Are you gonna tell us that you were like a professional breakdancer? You're not saying that I'm off base with my prediction. Does that mean you're like a professional breakdancer?
No, but I did go to stage school for a big chunk of my childhood, and
Which means you're good at singing and dancing.
I do have qualifications in dance.
Oh man. Well, heaven help them with me, because we know how I sing. I got a 28 at
However,
karaoke singing Red.
however, you there's also the other side of this as well. People that spend a lot of time with me and know how ever so slightly crazy I am. When I get a little bit, how shall I put it? Well, when Kelly kicks in, basically, and if you know me very, very well, and you're used to how daft I can be, because I am secretly still about 12-year-old underneath all of it. This is all a lie. I am still just a very big kid. I tend to sing in my what we refer to as my Disney voice.
Ooh, Disney voice.
Yeah,
So you're gonna be
and
singing song, but see, this is the thing with this. It's not just like singing what you wanna say. You have to come up with actual song lyrics.
oh no, that wouldn't be a problem. I'm a walking
Oh,
encyclopedia of
damn it.
everybody
I thought
else's
maybe that
song
would be
lyrics.
hard.
No,
I
no,
don't
no.
think I
Everybody
know
else's
enough
song lyrics,
songs, like
I'm absolutely fine with. It's my own lyrics I can't remember, especially when put on the spot.
I can't remember song lyrics, so and can't sing worth shit, but, um, so I don't think I could sing don't think I could communicate with someone all day only by singing song lyrics.
No, I could probably do that. I'd probably really annoy him and do some really weird avant-garde mixtures of stuff. But yeah, I'd probably take the singing and just communicating through song lyrics.
I think it'd be fun because then they could play a game and try to guess what song you're singing to them and what
They
you have to
wouldn't know
say.
because I'm into some really bizarre music. Why have I
Come
suddenly
up
just
with
got a
some
Nine Inch
bizarre ones.
Nails song go through my head?
Well, it depends on what you wanna communicate, right?
I don't want to communicate
They have
that.
to they
I
have to
really don't
communicate
want to
back to you in the
communicate that
same way.
lyric.
Oh
Oh
god, your
dear.
dirty mind.
Yeah, you don't know any Nine Inch Nails, do you? We're good. Well, let's leave that there. We're going to leave that right there.
So you're going song lyrics. They gotta sing back
I'm
to you
going song
too.
lyrics.
So they've gotta be able to communicate back, which is gonna be a problem for Sammy, right? We know he doesn't remember lyrics
Yeah,
very
he
well.
can't do lyrics. Yeah, we know.
All right. Well, to the detriment of the Rose, sorry guys, but they're gonna see my dance skills. I think I could
I,
like
l-
mime
I
dancing
love
really
the
well.
idea of you like doing full on interpretive dance.
Oh my god, I do too. Wouldn't that be awesome? My full-on
I think
interpretive
I'd pay
dance
to see
to
that.
and then but see, they have to communicate back to me that way. So I wanna see like Jaehyun and Hajun. Oh, Leo would be so good at it.
Leo would be
He would be
great
so
at
good at
it.
doing the interpretive dance back to me.
Yeah.
That would be
See, the
hysterical.
problem is, though, you've said interpretive dance, and I've got Martha Graham in my head.
I don't know who that is.
See, that's the thing. This is when I come out with stuff like that, and then anybody who's done dance goes, "Oh God, yes, she has done dance." It's like, oh shit. I'm into rock and metal. People are not meant to know that I can dance.
Ooh. Oh my God, we need a video of this.
No, we don't need a video of this.
We need a
No,
video
nobody
of
needs to
this.
know. Nobody needs to know that I can dance ever, 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 ever.
Oh man. Well, we'll take
Oh
that
God.
dancing video out the same point that, my karaoke goes public, because we don't need to see that either.
Is that see it or hear it?
Hear it. Yeah, yeah. We don't need to hear that one either.
Oh no,
All
we
right,
don't need to
listeners. Well, tell us what
dancing
you would
either.
pick. You're hanging out all day with the Rose, but you can only communicate through either singing song lyrics back and forth or mime dance moves. Tell us what you would pick. We can't wait to hear. Join us next time. As we said, we're going to dive into the last two songs on the Wolf album, Face and Lonely. Those are two really good tracks, too. So excited to keep this good conversation going. Please rate our podcast and leave us comments about this episode. We'd love to hear your feedback. Follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok, and X. We are at krock_cast.
Click here to subscribe.
Email us at krock.cast@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our website, www.krockcast.com. We'll put the English translations for these songs on that website so you can easily access them. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.